Gonna push record. It's recording now. So here we are in part three. This is the third of our three, hopefully three episode series, maybe four, on behavioral strategies with our BYU team. And go ahead, I'll let you take it over, Agatha. Thanks.
Hey, all right. Well, we did talk a little bit before about desensitization. We're talking about the calm stage right now. And we talked about desensitization and some examples of that. And now we kind of wanted to move into talk a little bit about antecedent strategies. Because when students are in this calm stage, in the calm phase, they really are more able to learn. Okay. So that's a really nice stage to be in. And we want to make sure that we use some strategies to help them kind of stay in that calm stage if possible. And some of the strategies we use are called antecedent strategies, meaning they are helping make sure that we don't trigger a behavior, right? They come before the behavior, the antecedents. So a lot of times we want to change kind of some of the things we do so that students respond better. Okay, they have a better response. They really are great because they prevent unwanted behavior. They set students up for success. They reduce triggers, which is wonderful, right? And teach and support desired behavior. So they are great to use with students. In fact, I always say if we're going to use a strategy, the first ones we should go to are the antecedent strategies because they are, if you can get it before the behavior occurs, that's wonderful. Um, so we had this idea of just thinking about to let like thinking about some antecedent strategies that you actually might already use. And I bet you, Sandy, you use some of these without even thinking about it, right? Some of them might include a visual schedule. So that is a wonderful thing to have for students so that they know exactly what they are going to be doing that day. They can see visually. I know we've got some non-verbal or they can't read, students that have a hard time reading. So that visual, just like with a picture, can be really beneficial for students. Um, it provides a predictable routine. And then if things change with your visual schedule, it's nice to kind of have a Velcro schedule or something you can wipe off. And then you can just put in and let them know, hey, tomorrow, this is going to be a new thing on your schedule. Or in the morning, hey, we have this on our schedule and it's a little bit new, but at least they're seeing it visually and understanding that there might be a change. Um, Structured choices is really good too because sometimes students feel or children feel like they're locked into only one choice, right? One thing. And so when you give them other choices, right? Maybe you offer a few other things. Would you like to do this first or would you like to do this, Or maybe even a small choice board where, which one of these two do you want to start with? That is really beneficial for students and actually helps them feel like they have some control of their environment. As an adult, I know I like to have choices. I don't always like to be stuck in one thing and I can only do it this way. Same with our students with special needs. They really, really like to have choices, right? And so that's something we want to really consider and think about as we're working with them. Task modifications, adjusting difficulty. I think oftentimes when we're working with children, in fact, my grandson, when I ask him to do a task that feels like too much, like pick up all these things and there's a ton of things all over the floor, it might be just so overwhelming for him. But if I say, help me pick up these 5 things, and then we start picking them up and we get some behavioral momentum going where it's in a positive direction, then he's more willing to help finish out a lot more with me. So thinking about how can I structure this a little different to make it maybe a little easier or manageable for my child, right? So that they don't feel like it's too much, like it's too hard for them. And then pre-correction. That's where you can give some reminders of expectations before a situation occurs. So let's say, Sandy, you're taking Jasmine to the pool. Before you go, you would say, "Hey, Jasmine, remember, here are some of the rules and expectations we have when we go out to the pool. So I just want you to remember these specific things. You can have a little visual, expectations reminder. I love like having little visual rules or pictures that go along with that. And that really helps a lot prevent, some of the behavior that could occur. They don't always remember it, but if you do it consistently, then they learn and they remember, oh, yes, mom said I can only do these things, or this is my expectation when I go here. And then non-contingent reinforcement is beautiful. We love using that as antecedent strategy because basically you are praising them or providing positive feedback and attention, and it's not really tied to any behavior. It's just because they're wonderful who they are. So we often use that when a student or a child feels like there's just been a lot of negative feedback to them because maybe they're having a hard time behaviorally, and so all they hear is, stop doing that. Don't get into that. You're not doing what you need to do, those kind of things. And of course, as parents, we do that, right? But when a student gets that all the time, they feel, like they're not worth a lot. But if we can build them up in a positive way, and just be positive, not depending on their behavior, but who they are. Like, hey, I just am so glad you're here with me today. Um, I'm so excited to go to swim with you today. I love that red shirt you're wearing, and again, it's not based on any of their behavior. It's just really based on them. Oh, your smile is so beautiful. Jasmine, I love your hair today. It's so pretty. So we're saying those positive things and really giving them a positive attention and trying to build them up. We really need to build students up because if we look at ourselves even as like a circle, like hey, or a heart, we need to our heart needs our circle needs to be filled up. We want it filled up with positive things. And every time we say negative things, it kind of drains that circle, right? I wish I had a visual for you right now. I'd love to explain that. And so if we get drained all the way where we have nothing left, we feel empty. We don't feel like we're taken care of and we don't feel good about ourselves. So it's important that we always are giving that positive to our students and children. And then we have preferred activities first. So that is kind of what I talked to you guys about with my grandson. He has autism and he's so cute, but sometimes he just does not want to do things. So I have to kind of figure out, okay, well, can I get him to do something that he likes first and then move into something that's kind of less preferred, right? Um, So follow a less preferred task with a more preferred one. So actually the example here is opposite. I just want to let you guys know this is the one that got kind of mixed up. But instead of first we clean up, then we play a game, it would be, okay, let's play this game first, and then we'll clean up. Okay. And so we're giving them that preferred activity first, and then we're moving into having them do something that maybe is not as fun. So I might be like, okay, let's play. Oh, my grandson loves playing with blocks. Okay, let's play with these blocks and we'll play for 5 minutes. Then we're going to clean up these other numbers because he loves numbers and he'll just throw them all around the room. Then we'll clean up these numbers. Okay. And so that would give him, again, some behavior momentum. That's what it's called, like momentum into doing something he likes and then kind of maybe building into something less preferred. Prompting is always a really great antecedent strategy. Give verbal, visual, or physical cues to guide expected behavior. We do it all the time. As parents, I'm sure you do it all the time. You give a verb, a prompting to do something just by visual, like maybe be quiet. I'm not sure, Sandy, what do you guys do there in American Samoa? Some of those nonverbal promptings that you might give, pointing. And you might like arch your eyebrows and point, like, oh, and then your child knows, oh, I need to do this. But sometimes when we are talking about prompting, it's good to have some very specific ones for your child so that they know, hey, this is an expectation. So when I go 1, 2, 3, that means I want you to do this. After three, I means you need to stop what you're doing and do this. Do you know what I'm saying? So we're making our own prompting cues very specific to your child's needs. So children do really well when you have some set prompting procedures, okay? If it's random all the time, they kind of don't know how to read that as well. But if you have some very set things that they know, it can be visual, it can be verbal, it can be cues, expected behavior type things, um, then that is very, very helpful for them. You can also use those prompting cues very specifically to help remind them of like visual expectations, like pointing to a picture that says, hey, remember to ask, or ask for a break right now. You know what I'm saying? So we use those all the time. Of environmental arrangement, moving things around, modifying space is so important. And it really does help minimize distractions and triggers for children. And as parents, it's something that you guys can do with your children is kind of rearranging your spaces to help support your child's needs. Um, when I work with children, it's really nice when I go into the house if they have kind of what's called a safe space or their own personal space. And that could be their room, but sometimes it's not because they have to share a room. But they have like a space that they can go to where they can feel calm, safe, and they have the needed things to kind of soothe them and keep them regulated more. And so with one of the students I worked with, they ended up doing like they had a downstairs basement. I don't know if you guys have that in American Samoa, if you have basements there. But he underneath the stairs, he had his own special place where he had his favorite blanket, like a little bean bag. He had lights, he had certain music that helped calm him down, like that he could turn on. And then he had a phone that he had access to some of the games he liked to play. So those kind of things can be really helpful, especially when your child is really struggling. If there's too much stimulus happening around them, they're probably going to have a trigger and explode. And so that's a great way to get them to a place where they feel like, hey, I can just be here and know that I have this place. Um, a token economy and a reward system. Obviously, reward systems are wonderful for children, and any kind of way for them to earn something special, like little tokens to be able to do something special that they like, is wonderful. I'm sure you maybe seen or used sticker charts or little tokens you give them so that they can earn something. One of the things I think is kind of fun for kids at home is like having like a little penny jar, where once they get the pennies to the top, you can take them to the store to get something, a treat, that they have from the pennies in the jar or whatever, or the nickels, however you want to do that. That's kind of a fun way. So whenever you see them doing something really great, or things are going well, you give them a nickel, they put it in the jar. Once the jar is full, they're like, oh, we can go do this fun thing together. So that's kind of just one idea, but there's so many vast ways to use token economy and a reward system for your children. Sandy, have you used anything that's worked really well for Jasmine?
I'm sure I have. I'm not thinking right now straight. I'm just
Yeah.
taking in, but that was like a great one with the tokens. Um, yeah, we used to do marks too, the stickers, give stickers, but Jasmine liked to eat the stickers, so we had to stop that.
That one didn't quite
And
work as
then
well. So
we had to be careful about too about not offering sugar as a reward, candies and things like that, because of just making things hard at night. Too much
yes.
sugar, no sleep. So we had to be creative in other types of rewards. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's a really good point, right? You need to make sure it's very specific for your child's needs too. And so obviously if treats aren't a good idea, could they go buy a pair of sunglasses? Maybe they love that, or whatever. Or could you go to the library with them? Could you go to the beach, and maybe they're not earning coins, but they're earning like little gemstones or something like that to fill up their cup, or you can have a little chart with where you're Velcroing little kind of like stickers, but not stickers, but little uh like token type things on there, and so that they're earning those and able to do something. I love the reward system, Sandy, where you can actually do something with your child and because that builds those relationships. It gives them time. And even like maybe they love Legos or something like that. And you say, okay, when you've got all get these tokens, then we can go build this Lego thing together. Anything that they love. It's just a great way to help support. Zones of regulation. We actually did a training in the past on zones of regulation. There's a lot to it. But it's really a system where you teach children to manage their emotions using a color-coded zones. So um, I don't know if we can go into a lot of detail on that, but maybe someday we'll do another training on that one. I think it's really cool using zones of regulations with children and helping them realize where their emotions are at and things that they can do when they're in those emotions to kind of calm down. Okay. So it's just a wonderful system. And then positive praise, we all know positive praise is wonderful. You're giving specific praise. Specific praise is even better, telling them exactly what they did that you liked, because then if you tell them exactly what they did, then they're going to be more likely to do that behavior again. So if I just say like, good job, you're amazing, that's nice, right? But if I said, I really like the way you put those coloring crayons away, Jasmine, thank you. You put them away just right. So now Jasmine's like, oh, I feel good and I know exactly what I did that was good. So I'm going to continue doing that. So those are all really positive things to think about. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the trigger phase. Margaret, are you doing this one or? Okay.
I think I'm doing agitation, but I can do trigger if you'd want.
No, that's okay. Okay. We'll have you do agitation.
Okay.
So the trigger phase, when a student is triggered, it means they've experienced a specific event or circumstance that really has evoked a strong, often negative reaction or behavior. Okay. So maybe something happened, an antecedent, someone said something, and then all of a sudden this behavior occurs. And I know all parents, I'm sure you guys have seen that with your children. Every child has gone through this. We do this too sometimes as adults. We have triggers, right? And so, yeah, it can be really hard in this stage when a child gets triggered to know what to do sometimes. We're like, why aren't they listening? Why don't they just calm down quickly? This is kind of frustrating. When they're in this stage, a lot of times they don't want to complete any tasks you ask them. If they're triggered, they're not going to complete anything you ask them to do. There's a lot of conflicts happening. Sometimes triggers include are happen because of lack of sleep. Okay. Sometimes triggers occur because they feel like they have no control over a situation. When you feel, even as an adult, I know sometimes when I feel like I have no control, I get a little triggered, right? Oh, now I'm an adult and I don't lie down and throw a fit, but it might be uncomfortable for me. So I have to think of the ways I cope with it and cope with it in a way that's appropriate. But our children don't always do that. When they're hungry, sometimes when they're not given a lot of praise, when there's a lot of negativity happening, that can trigger a child if they're reprimanded. Okay. Um, that can be really hard. There's a change in a schedule or routine, asked to do something they don't want to do, and then home stressors, right? There's just things in the house. So maybe there was a fight that happened, or siblings were, um, pulling your child's your hair, or there's a lot of things that can trigger those the behavior. Okay. So I this is why I say antecedent strategies are so great, is because we want to prevent as many triggers as possible. Okay. As parents, you really want to try to figure out and find the specific triggers that are happening and try to think about what is happening right before those triggers, so that maybe I can figure out a way that my child doesn't get triggered quite as much. Doesn't mean we shouldn't address things, right? It just means like, is there another way to approach something so they don't get triggered as much, right? Um, So, as far as supports, obviously before trigger occurs, you're going to teach social skills to handle challenging moments, practice expected behaviors through role play and social stories. Those are great ways to help your child. Provide active and attentive supervision, offer a brief reminder of the behavior you want to see, reduce or remove exposure to triggers, reinforce positive behaviors, use pathway charting for effective planning. We're not really going to go into this a lot. It's kind of there's a lot of in-depth stuff in this. But this could be another training. So ABCs, functions, things like that. So when triggers are present, when they do occur, you want to calmly redirect your child to help them regain control. Okay. So it could be your child or adult. So redirecting them might be giving them choices of things that you know help calm them down, right? Or giving them some choice here. Offer reminders of coping skills and replacement strategies they've learned. You could have, and what I've used with children a lot of times is a choice board where you know exactly the things that really help them. So maybe going on a walk, going to get a drink, going to my safe place in the house. You know, there might be four different choices, and now you're saying which one point. You don't even, at that point in time, you don't really want them to vocalize a lot because they're in a really high stressful state, you know. So you're just like, hey, which one of these will help? You know, and let them point and go, you know, go to it. Or just tell them to go. Once they're older, you know, they should know they can go to those spaces that they already know or get the things they need. You know, we want them to be able to get to a point where they can do it independently, right? That's our whole goal. And then you really want to reinforce positive behaviors and reinforce when they choose to do a calming strategy or to make a different choice, then that behavior, that trigger behavior, like the extreme behavior, or maybe throwing themselves on the ground. Instead, they go to the board, they point to something, they do it. You praise, right? And maybe you wait because maybe a praise could possibly be a trigger at that point. But at some point in time, maybe it's when they're a little more calm. You say, you know what, you did such a fantastic job choosing choosing a choice that helps you, you know? And so it's really great to do that. And then the pathways chart. And again, this one we're not going to talk about in this training as much. Okay. I'm gonna kind of skip through this. I feel like it's a lot. Again, I think that needs its own kind of training. Okay. So here's a home setting screaming during homework time. So maybe, oh, I'm gonna actually not go over that because that's kind of part of those charts. So that's kind of the main stuff in the trigger stage that you really need to think about. Now we're going to move into the agitation stage. Margaret, do you want to take it from here?
Yep. So, like Agatha's been talking about, we have just this whole escalation stage, and like she said mentioned in our other training, students don't always follow this exact pattern. Like they could switch from calm to agitation or trigger to peak. Like there's it fluctuates, but this is generically what happens. So in agitation, it's characterized by an emotional response. So something very like they're experiencing extreme anger, depression, frustration, or the student like disengages or shows restlessness. Um, these are some signs. They're unfocused, maybe they're chatty, and it depends on the student. Like I have, or the child. I have one student who, when he's agitated, he will completely shut off. And then I have another student who is when he's agitated, he'll just talk the whole time. He'll just keep talking and talking and talking. So it depends, and any of these could be signs of agitation. Clenching your fist, having a louder voice, fidgeting, having your head down, maybe pacing, increase in movement, out of your seat, talking with others, social withdrawal. Um, and like I said, you know your kid the best, and so you'll know what their signs of agitation look like, and these are just some examples of common ones. So what parents can do um, when a student's in agitation, you can usually be cautious about your space that you're giving to the student. Usually when someone is really agitated, you need to give them some space. Um, I feel this way. If I'm feeling really upset, I usually don't want someone to be close to me. I just need space. I need to back off. Um, Parents can also provide empathy, like just saying, "Hey, I'm really sorry that this is bothering you. I understand what you're feeling. It's okay to feel what you're feeling." Um, you can permit preferred activities. So, depending on the behavior, if they're simply just agitated and you can tell that they're feeling agitated, you could say, "Would you like a weighted blanket? Would you like your favorite stuffy?" You can offer them those preferred activities to help them de-escalate. Um, but if it's a really extreme behavior and they're starting to escalate even more, you usually need to make sure that they're being safe. You can have sensory tools, help them move, be distracted, etc. Some calming strategies are mindfulness or meditation. Listening, I have a lot of students that like to listen to just really calm music, like rain sounds. Um, you can help them with positive self-talk. Again, that could be triggering. It just depends on your kid. Like, you know what they need. You've been with them their whole lives, and so you know what they need. These are just some suggestions. Another one is helping the person work on what they're supposed to be doing or using calming strategies that help you as just an example, but those are just, again, generic examples.
Thank you.
After agitation, it goes into acceleration. So agitation is kind of more stagnant. Acceleration is like things are increasing and you can tell that the agitation is getting worse. Um, this is where the person's actions usually intensify and it shows that there's going to be a behavioral crisis, most likely, potentially. The escalation definitely increases. The individual resists communication or usually starts to engage in some more um, like some more behaviors that will get a reaction from someone else. Some of these acceleration behaviors are really intense behaviors like threatening someone else, following directions while doing something that they shouldn't be doing, clenching their fists. So that's a sign of agitation again, and it's part of acceleration as well. Clenching your fists, being disorganized, arguing or talking back is a big one that I see. Refusing to following directions, usually yelling or raising their voice, or refusing to communicate, or starting to break things. So that's where this acceleration comes in. Things are starting to escalate more, and we're trying to de-escalate, but this is where things are getting more intense. Parents, the most important thing that I've seen in all behavior scenarios is that the individual who is not involved in the escalation needs to stay calm. So the parent, for example, or the teacher, they need to stay calm because if that person starts to react, it'll make the other person escalate even more. So the most important thing you can do when your child is having a really hard time is just to stay calm. You approach them really slowly. You can give them a lot of space, keeping a safe distance, using minimal language. When they're in this stage of acceleration, their brain is back in the amygdala, like we talked about in our first video. They're not in their prefrontal cortex where they're thinking logically about things. So talking to them and them talking isn't going to be what they need. They just need some space. Um, you can state clear expectations, just avoiding power struggles, and then offering choices when it's appropriate.
Okay, thank you. The
Hmm.
next stage is what it is, really is the crisis stage. And that's where, again, you're in your amygdala, they're in their amygdala brain, and their barking dog comes out. They're protecting themselves, right? They are not thinking, they're not rational. Do not try to talk to your child during this time. Really, you're really trying to just keep them safe. Um, Really, they're in a significant loss of control. Okay, and this is the highest intensity of disruptive or unsafe behavior. um, Usually there's aggression and destruction that happens with themselves or others or things around them. A lot of times when I've worked with children that are in this stage, they break things, they throw things, they run. Running is a big one. sometimes they're in such a rage or a state where I've seen children break windows and run as fast as they can into roads where it's very dangerous. Throwing rocks, hitting, slapping, hurting others. Um, they're just not able to think again. And so we can't really reason with them a lot when they're in this space. But one of the things we can do, oh, one of the things I want to tell you about this though is a common range for children is 3 to 10 minutes, but there are cases where our children can be in the stage for up to 20 to 30 minutes. So I don't know, Sandy, if you ever have seen Jasmine kind of rage for a while, a little bit longer. I've worked with several students that st have stayed in the rage go in and out of the rage. They go to peak and start de-escalating, go to peak again, de-escalate, peak, but they're in there for a good solid 2 to 3 hours sometimes. But again, they don't just always stay in that peak high intensity the whole time. I mean, that would be so exhausting for a child. By the time they're done with that 3 hours, I mean, they're so tired, you know. But it's just a hard place for them to be. Again, they jump back and forth a lot of times from that peak stage. And if things are said to them that trigger them during the peak stage, or they're starting to de-escalate, and then someone says something that is a trigger for them, they'll jump right back into that peak stage. So we have to be really know again how to handle that when we're working with these children. It is not a time for teaching or discipline. Okay. So, as parents, you should not be disciplining your children during this time. Sometimes you want to. You're like, why aren't you doing what I ask? You're out of control. You know, now you're going to go home and go to your room. Or, you know what I'm saying? You know, we're trying to reason, we're trying to tell them what's going to happen. But they just really can't take that in. So, we just need to know it's really important. Um, that we are not telling them, we're not teaching them, we're not disciplining them during that time. Okay. Um, if we prepare or we have things that we are helping support them in the earlier phases, it can a lot of times prevent escalation to this level. Not all the time, right? There are times when we've tried everything in our book and it's just not working. But for the most part, if we can try some of those antecedent strategies and supports, then it can help prevent getting us to this stage. And that's what we really want to do. We don't want our child to live in that stage for a long period of time over and over because they start feeling really comfortable in that stage. So we want it to occur as little as possible. Okay.
There's like
What
2 minutes left. So
Okay, I'll try to finish up this slide. Okay, what parents can do in this stage, stay calm and focus, prioritize safety over discipline, give the pre-agreed signal to other children. Maybe like there's a code, there's other kids in your home or other people around. There might be a code like this or, you know, a pointing so they know exactly what to do. Clear all the area so the child is safe and so everyone else around them is safe. Remove as much items that may cause harm in the immediate area. And again, avoid confrontation, reasoning, or demanding compliance during this time. Follow a home safety plan. It's really nice if you have a home safety plan written up. So if someone has to come in and help, like a safety team or emergency team, you can hand it to them and say, here's my child, here's the things that help. Please don't do this and this and this because that triggers my child. I really don't want you, you know, this, I want you to be aware of this. You can hand it to them and not have those verbal conversations, but they might have to come and restrain your child, maybe, if that's needed. So, but that's not always needed. Sometimes they just need some space to calm down. Okay. So those are some things to really think about. Um, are we out of time, Sandy?
there's like 1 minute left, but this is important. Physical restraints generally don't don't help unless it's
Yes.
for safety, yeah, unless it's for absolute safety, last resort.
Mhm. Yes, and I love that you said that because physical restraint should only be used as a last resort. I mean, Sandy, you've probably tried and been like, why did I even try? Um, some people really think it's a good thing. However, I have never seen it be fully successful unless, again, it is they're harming themselves or someone else, and they physically have to be restrained because of that. So, all other cases, there are a lot of other ways you can deal with children that have escalated to certain points like that. But restraint is not the best choice, I would say, in general.
Okay, yeah, so we're out of time now. It's going to blink off. Did you want to log back on if it blinks off and just
Yes.
wrap it up? Yeah, just
Um,
but that's good. That's a good ending point because we can get to the other stuff another time. Yeah, and we have addressed it in other um areas, other podcasts. So
so I'm I think probably I can meet with you one more time. I think maybe this will take us one more time to get through the rest of this, Sandy.
oh, okay.
Um, do you want to meet again next week?